Alright, we're back. So, if you see my bike, I actually have biked out to the city lake. This is like the fourth or fifth day in a row that I've done it. And it ties in perfectly with what I wanted to share with this video, which is mini experiments. So, mini experiments are an idea that I recently have been thinking a lot about, like the past couple months. And so the idea of a mini experiment is something that does not take much effort or money or time to try, but the consequences are so big that it like pays off for all the other ones that you've tried. And another like rule of a mini experiment is it can't be irreversible. So like marriage is probably the first thing that comes to mind. You don't want to test with marriage. You want to be sure about marriage. But when it comes to mini experiments, I guess the best way that I can share my experience with them is like just to share some of the mini experiments I've tried. And the first one that comes to mind is this. So I've been biking to the city lake the past couple days, and it doesn't cost much. Like it's free, and it takes quite a bit of energy to like bike to the city lake. But even if I didn't come to the city lake, I could have just biked around town. And what I have realized is that biking to the city lake, just biking in general, when I am done, I feel like I have more energy than before I biked, which is like, it's almost a paradox because it's like you're spending energy, you're working out, exercising, but then I have even more energy. So like, I don't know if it's because like the blood is pumping or what, but that's just a little experiment I tried 4 days ago, and I mean, this is the fourth or fifth day that I've done it, so it's worked out very well. Another one is, I'm a writer. I don't know if you know much about me, but I make most of my money by writing. So like creative writing or persuasive writing, sales, stuff like that. And I usually did my writing in the morning. So I've heard a lot of famous people say the best creative work is in the morning. And I was like, you know what, I'll just try writing at night and see what happens. And a couple weeks ago, I started writing at night. My wife goes to bed at around 9 o'clock, and I usually stay up until 1. So I got a couple hours of work I can get in there. And I realized the first night I did it, I wrote 3,000 words, which is a ton of words. And not necessarily just writing, like I was doing research on cryptocurrency topics that are like pretty in depth. So I was like, I have way more work at night. I never thought I was a night owl, but I wrote a lot at night. I guess it's because there's no distractions. Like and during the day, you can go out and get lunch and stuff like that, and there's distractions. But anyways, it was a little test I tried, and it worked really well because I've done it multiple days in a row. But like I said, it was just a little experiment. I was like, I'll try it and see what happens. And it worked really well, and I've been doing it since. There are bad experiments, though. Maybe I'll share some of those. But another good experiment that I tried was my wife, when she comes home from work, she gets off at 5, and she's told me before she wants like an hour to herself. I think most of us do, and there's like switching gears kind of. And but even after that hour, I would be like, I'm still in work mode. Like I'd be thinking about work, I'd be on my phone. Sometimes I'd even go back to the office to work. And to improve our relationship, I was like, why don't I just try being 100% there? And so I tried that. Like one day, when she came home from work, it's something around an hour, 45 minutes, hour and a half, how much time she needed to herself. And immediately after that, like she started watching a show, and I was like, oh, come and watch a show with her and be 100% present with her. And she really appreciated that. It has definitely improved our relationship, spending like quality time together. And that was a little experiment. It was like the cost wasn't that much. I just spending time with my wife, but the consequences are like she is much happier. She like our relationship got a lot better when I started spending more time with her. And it was just like those little experiments in life. When I look back, the best things that I have gotten out of my life have been out of little tests that I tried, and they worked really well. Another example of a really good one was my aunt. We were at Thanksgiving a couple years ago, and she said that she had bought this membership thing. I think she bought it. She may have been just talking about it from a quilting person that she followed, or someone she knows started a quilting membership, and it was like a monthly price, and they got like every month they got recurring things about quilts. And you join this quilt group, and she said that it worked really well for her, and she was not necessarily selling me on it, but just telling me about it. And personally, I could have been like, oh, she doesn't know anything about my business. That's not something I could try. Had my ego got in the way, but like I had this experimenter, this mad scientist like mindset, and I was like, I'm willing to try it. And I just checked a couple minutes ago, and the revenue from me starting a membership like a program like that is it was $97,000. So like just trying that little experiment, like the huge consequences. And then also with that, I've had way more one-on-ones with people, and like they've benefited from it. So it's been like a very beneficial thing. Just trying that one little thing. I could have had my ego in the way, or I could have just tried it. And there's other things. There's plenty of other experiments that I've tried. I think I made a list of like 30 of them, which once you get past 30, it's hard to come up with stuff. Another one that I did was cutting sugar out of my coffee, and it's like, in the academic sense, I am starting to get this thing that they call the dad bod. So I'm working on losing weight. And one of the ways you can do that is basically cutting carbs. And I'm not going to get too much into that, but one thing I have found is I was like, I'm just going to cut the sugar out of my coffee and just see what happens. And I was able to fast until like 3 o'clock. Like, no hunger. I am not hungry at all until like 3 or 4 o'clock, until like almost dinner starts rolling around. And so like the cost was like, just cut the sugar out. You know, it may not taste the best the first time, but just see what happens. And like, it has really been working. And in the first week I lost, I think like 5 pounds just from cutting sugar out, because of like, it got rid of those hunger, like wanting to snack and stuff. So those were the good ones. I'll share 2 bad ones with you. So the first bad one is my wife is currently pregnant. And as you know, sometimes the things that pregnant women say are not the most polished, probably to put that in the nicest way possible. And sometimes she'd say something to me that wasn't the most polished, and I would, to be quite frank, ignore it. It was just an experiment. I was like, if she's going to say something that isn't the most polished, I'm just going to ignore it. And that was not a good experiment. People do not like to be ignored. But it was like, with common sense, like that's the part of these experiments, is like test common sense. And that's the reason they should be common, is because it's true all the time, which common sense is like, don't ignore people. Another bad one that I found is like, I heard this quote once, and it was like, drink caffeine, there's caffeine for productivity and alcohol for creativity. And I was like, you know what, I'll try it. So I tried it for a week, and what that meant was like, I drink casually through the night while I was working. That was a bad decision. Alcohol does not promote creativity. I probably should have known from all the science, but I was like, I'll test it. Like, what's the cost? I just drink a few, I don't want to say what I drank, but I drank a little bit each night and just saw what happened. And it's like, each night I was more tired earlier. The work was not as creative. Like, it wasn't as good. It was just a little test that I ran, and I saw the consequences of it, and it did not work well. So, I was just like, these little mini experiments, Theodore, you yourself, that's what I'm making these videos for, is for me in the future to watch. You may need to start some new mini experiments, like start a list of new creative ideas that you could try and see what happens. Because I have found my life changes the most when you try these little experiments, and the consequences from them like pay off more so than all the other ones that failed. And I don't know what else to share from this video, and it's already quite long. I really wanted to make these videos short, like snippets, like little things you could go back and watch without like getting too invested, but this video is already almost 8 minutes long, so I'm just gonna go ahead and end it there. By the way, I have to pee, so I gotta go back on the bike. I'll see you later.